All right, how we doing, everybody? This channel, Alt Horse Think. This is going to be my first horse handicapping decode. This is primarily going out to the gematria community. People are already in the know, and what the purpose is, a lot of us, as I know from talking over the years in the chats, don't live in legal jurisdictions where we can bet. But over half the country lives in legal sportsbook states. So I'm going to start doing decodes that will hopefully allow those of us who aren't in sportsbook states that can bet on racehorses to hopefully make some money off the great information that we've learned through gematria. But I want to make it more open than that. I want to be accepting of any esoteric art or communication, occult communication that's coming from the system that might help us make some money. So, astrology, rhetoric, sacred math, anything. I'm willing to take it all in if we can do what we can do to make some better bets. And I got Arthur's picture up. I wanted to start there. This is based off a lot of work from Simple Truth TV, which is Arthur. He's on YouTube, and also kind of the granddaddy of the movement, who was Zachary K. Hubbard. That's him below. Gematria Effect Sports, Gematria Effect News, Simple Truth TV on YouTube. You got to query his. It doesn't come up with the @Simple Truth TV handle, but both these guys are easy to find. Got a lot of vids. You should take a look, but hopefully most of you already know who they are. So this video specifically is going to build on their work with the Rigged World Series, the TakeOff murder, who was the rapper who just passed, its relationship to the crowd surge event at the Astro World last year. And you should guys watch this vid, the vids about that from Zach and Simple Truth. That's the title, The Ritual Murder of Takeoff of Migos in Houston on the 4th anniversary of the Rocket. That's Hubbard, Zachary Effects Sports vid. But that also tied into some horse racing news, which none of the gematria guys covered because nobody cares, because they're always betting on football, baseball, and hockey and the NBA. So let's talk about how we can make some money with this. So first of all, the quick background story. This is the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is sort of the Super Bowl now, or the World Championships of horse racing, was on November 5th this year, which was the Saturday. Was the same day as the World Series game that ended the series, where the Astros won with Alvarez hitting the go-ahead home run. Also related to this is Super Tuesday Joe Biden in his adopted home state of Pennsylvania. So you had the World Series with Philadelphia and the Astros. You also had the MLS Cup with the Philadelphia Union and LAFC. And then, of course, on the TNF football on Thursday, you had the Eagles beating the Houston Texans, another tie-in to the Philly-Houston thing, which tied right in to the World Series. But in terms of the Breeders' Cup Classic, let's start back with where these guys' research was about the last year's World Series and the Houston music event. So on November 5th last year in 2021, you had the Crowd Crush event at the Travis Scott concert in Houston at the NRG Park. And that was, I guess, some of the fans rushed the stage is what the story was, and 10 people were killed or somewhere thereabouts. And they were trampled. And a Crowd Crush stampede is kind of how they labeled it in the news. That then foretold the Astros, that went along with the Astros in last year's World Series, where they lost to the Braves, who lost Jackie Robinson that year, and there was the Colonial Pipeline story and the election story. All that added to that series. So that mass kill event moves on, and I noticed that this year that on the 1st of November we had the Korean. I'm sorry, I think it was the 28th of September, the Korean crowd crush event. So, and here's the dates right here on the gematria. I want to show you kind of how sick this was. So it was October 29th, 2022. You had the Seoul crowd crush, or the Halloween stampede. It got called the Korean crowd crush as well. And from October 29th to last year's Breeders' Cup, which the Saturday fell on the 6th last year, you had 357 days, and as many of you know who are well-traveled in the gematria community and watched a lot of this, 357 is a big number. And then, of course, from the other crowd surge event, which happened on November 5th last year, it would be 358 days. So 357, 358 days later. I noticed this right away, and I noticed the numerology on it, and it looked a little strange. So it turns out last year's Breeders' Cup horse was called Knicks Go, although allegedly it had nothing to do with the New York Knicks. It's supposed to be an acronym for this Korean company that owns the horse. K-Knicks is the name of their breeding system. Company's called KRA or something, Korean Race Association. Anyways, this is the company that owns the Seoul horse racing track and is starting their breeding system. So this crowd crush event ties directly in with the Travis Scott Astros world to last year. And they reminded us of that event by having this one 357 days later, right before this year's November to Remember events, which of course ties back to remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder plot in England, where they tried to blow up King in Parliament, and the plan was foiled. So that let me know right away that there was something suspicious about this year's event. And then watching the other guys talk about the connections between the World Series connections, I also realized that the biggest thing here for this year was not just the deaths of the rappers, but it was also a Super Tuesday connection, because Biden's home state, his adopted home state, is Pennsylvania. He's been out stumping for all these midterms. That's why you had Thursday night football with the Eagles winning. You had an upset on Saturday with the Temple Owls upsetting the South Florida Bulls in American Conference football action. A game that would have been a great game to bet because they were like plus 150. South Florida was actually a fave for once. So you have those two games won by Philly, and then as we learned from Art at Simple Truth, the three championships were lost, and that was the Philadelphia Union in the soccer. At 4 o'clock, that game started. The night game was the World Series, where they lost. And the Breeders' Cup Classic, I realized the connection was the winner was the horse that won the Pennsylvania Derby, because it was the only Pennsylvania connection, and that was Bob Baffert's Taiba. So that horse finished third to the favorite, which was a heavy favorite, Flightline. So because of this knowledge, I was able to take a bet that was completely useless, because the favorite, Flightline, was a 20 cents on the dollar paying favorite. I never found out the clue on the second place horse, but the third place horse I knew because of the gematria work would be this Pennsylvania Derby winner. It went off at about 7, 8 to 1 on the win bet. It must have been around 6 to 1 on the show pool because, as you can see from the ticket here, it was an easy smash. I had $70 on it, and 50 paid 100, 20 paid 40. So it paid 1 to 1, which gave me a good, simple plus 100 bet on what could have been another loss. All thanks to gematria, thanks to everything I've learned from this community, Zach Hubbard, and all the other great handicappers. Derek from Gematriator 85, Simple Truth TV. There's so many. So I want to thank all those guys. And I wanted to expose those connections to you so that hopefully we can start working together and find out more of these connections. I also want to tip off do a double check here to see what else we had. So there was the lineup. There was Taiba in the one horse. As you can see, it was 10 to 1 morning line. The fade there was Flightline here. It was 2 to 5 or 40 cents on the dollar, but it ended up going even shorter. I think it went off at maybe 20 or 30 cents on the dollar for a payout. So just terrible. You couldn't play that bet. It's just useless. But through the gematria, I was able to find a good bet with Taiba. So the other thing was, you see how sick this ritual is. So you have the rapper named TakeOff that was just died in this Houston event, and it's all tied to this NASA aeronautical theme. I mean, the Houston Astros, when it was an expansion team in the 60s, was called the Astros in order to piggyback off of the fame of Houston Control, the NASA Space Center there in Houston, where they did the moonshot control. Astro like stars. The rapper Takeoff, that's aeronautical, like a plane or a rocket ship taking off. And the name of the favorite horse was Flightline. Well, Flightline, again, is aeronautical. That's a trajectory or an altitude for a plane or a rocket. So you had the Flightline, the aeronautical, Astros theme horse beat Taiba up here, who was the winner of the Pennsylvania Derby. Just like you had the Astros beat the Philadelphia Phillies from Pennsylvania, and you had LAFC beat the Philadelphia Union in the soccer. So 3 PA champions, contenders, 3 PA contenders go up on Remember the 5th of November, and 3 of them go down. All in a planned ritual, all to pump Joe Biden, as well as do all their sick rituals to those mass crowd crush events. I'm going to try and keep this one short and drop off from there. Again, thanks for everybody. Please like, comment, subscribe. This is my first video. I hope we can get some other gematria folks and astrology folks, anybody else, join up. Let's try and get a think tank, message me, and maybe we can start handicapping the horses together, piggyback off the information we get from the other guys in the community, and hopefully we'll be able to make good picks too. We'll be able to share them in the chat, share our horse picks back with them. They can improve their parlays, and at least us in the states where we can only bet horses, at least we'll have some way to make a financial impact for ourselves. All right, all the best. See you next time.